Specifically to Russia, Mitt Romney was right back in 2012 when he said that that was our major geopolitical foe. And Obama, during the debate, made fun of that. But look where we are a dozen years later. Russia is waging hybrid warfare against the West, everything from Havana syndrome to the destroying the pipelines and telecommunication cables undersea to the attempted assassination of some political figures and some industry figures in Europe. Over 400 Russian spies have been expelled from the West since the invasion, almost 3 years now. And now the Russians are doing something referred to as like gig economy spying or gig economy sabotage, where they're hiring people in the West via telegram and paying them money to set fires and things like that. Putin has always bet heavy with a bad hand. He's been very successful with that. Europe spent a couple of years realizing how wrong it was for them to be so dependent on Russian energy. And they've done so much to dial back from that. You know, we haven't done enough to support Ukraine. That's my personal opinion. Ukraine is the sixth largest army in the world, and Russia's the fourth largest army in the world. If Russia takes over Ukraine and gets themselves control over the sixth largest army in the world, I think it's going to end up costing a heck of a lot more than the 5% of our defense spending that we've given to Russia in the past few years. But a lot of people just, in my opinion, are short-sighted and they don't see that.
Welcome to Open Book. I am your host, Anthony Scaramucci. Joining me today on Open Book is Mark Greaney. The title of the book is Midnight Black. What a great title, by the way. It's a Gray Man novel, so we're going to get into the Gray Man series as well with this #1 New York Times best-selling author, Mark Greaney. First of all, Mark, welcome to the show. Congratulations on the release. Many listeners know your work, but give us a little bit of your background before becoming this great thriller writer. What were you doing?
Well, thanks for having me, first off. Honestly, I don't have the same background some thriller writers do. I was just a guy working in an office. I was interested in international affairs and political science. My dad ran the NBC affiliate here in Memphis, Tennessee, where I grew up and where I still live.
Hey, everyone. It's Anthony Scaramucci here with some straight talk. Let me tell you, we've got 85% of our viewers who haven't hit the subscribe button yet. What's up with that? It hurts. Listen, I made my career by going all in. Right now, only 15% of our viewers are part of our subscribed family. So please take action. This helps us book more amazing guests. Hit subscribe, join our community, and let's turn these numbers upside down. Now back to the show.
So I just kind of grew up around the news and I had a great interest in it. Studied political science, international relations in college. Got out and did nothing with it for basically 20 years until I became a published author. I was in international business, and so I spent a lot of time, traveling and doing things of that nature. But I was a big reader, and I was obsessed with Tom Clancy and Nelson DeMille and these Cold War era authors and guys that continued on. And I got an idea to write a book when I was actually still in college, and I spent 15 years just picking away at it. And finished it, did nothing with it, and then wrote my second book in 7 months. And The Gray Man, which was my first published novel, was my fourth completed novel. So it took me 20 years to get published, but say 85% of that time was me not working very hard at it.
But there's correct me if I'm wrong, because you're very, very good at this. There's a calling to this, right? So you were doing something else, but you're like, I always wanted to write a great thriller novel. I got to get myself busy, right? The fingers started itching for the keyboard, right?
Yeah. So, I was just I was obsessed with reading. I would have 6 books going at the same time, pretty much all through my 20s and my 30s. And I just had this idea that I could write something. And so it was a calling to, people go like, wow, you were great for never giving up. And it's like, I didn't give up because I actually enjoyed what I was doing. If it had felt like work, if I was digging a ditch for 20 years, I would have been pretty miserable, but I was doing something that I really liked. And so it paid off finally.
Yeah. The people that survive are the ones that don't even realize they're working. But what's on your nightstand right now, if you don't mind me asking? Because as you know, I'm a big reader. What are you reading right now? Because I'm sure you got 3 or 4 books going at the same time. So what are they?
I do. I'm reading a lot of nonfiction, which is research for my next Gray Man book. And a lot of it has to do with Northern Ireland and the Troubles, the Irish Republican Army, things of that nature. I'm a big fan of kind of a new thriller author named David McCloskey. I don't know if you know who he is. So I've got his new one, The Seventh Floor, on deck. And, I like all the guys in my genre. I like to I say I'm not a jealous person. I'm never jealous of anyone's success, but I get really jealous of people's ideas. I'll read somebody's book and I'll be like, God, I should have thought of that. And I'm furious that I didn't. So I love to pick through stuff like that. But right now it's a lot of history about Northern Ireland and the Troubles.
So on this podcast, I've had Brad Thor. I have had Daniel Silva, the legendary Ken Follett, who writes thriller novels, but then also writes these historical novels. There's something you're doing that's unique, though, because I am a thriller reader. I'm not a thriller writer, but I'm a thriller reader. And I feel like your plot lines are so compelling and the character development is such, but then you slam people at the end of these paragraphs. It's impossible not to go to the next chapter. Okay, you're almost like you invented book streaming. Okay, what I mean by that is if I'm streaming something, a good stream, if you're watching Yellowstone, you probably have to watch the next episode. You hit play, stay up an extra 2 hours. How do you do that? What's in your brain as you're coming to the end of a chapter?
A lot of it happens in the editing, to be perfectly honest. Like nobody wants to see how the sausage is made. But the truth is I will be reading back something I read and go like, this just isn't propulsive enough. Or, the ending of this chapter isn't leading me into the next thing. You really want to finish every chapter with the reader going, and then what? Instead of feeling like anything's wrapped up, you want to keep people moving. So I'm just a fan of that style of writing. The faster, the better. I do like moments of lightness and dark and moments of speed and maybe some reflection and, vulnerability in your characters. These things, I don't ever want anything to be really one dimensional. It's not just, even a John Wick movie has moments where, where they take a breath, but I like to keep things just about as propulsive as I can.
All right, so I don't want to ruin the plot for Midnight Black, but you've got a great scene going on in here. We have a lover entrapped in a Russian gulag. There's got to be really bad prisons around the world, Mark Greene, but I don't know if there's many that are worse than a Russian gulag. And so set the scene for us. You throw us into this icy Russian story. Tell us what happened. Set a little bit of a scene for us without giving away too much.
Sure. The protagonist of the entire Gray Man series is a guy named Court Gentry, who's a former CIA paramilitary officer. And he's had different relationships with the CIA throughout the 14 books of the series. But in this one, he is on his own because the woman that he loves, who is a former Russian foreign intelligence officer, her name's Zoya Zakharova, and she has been thrown, as you said, in a gulag, a prison in the center of Russia, and it's winter. And he doesn't think she has long to live. And, the Russians are actually hiding her presence there. So there's a lot of cloak and dagger work for him to figure out where she is. And then he realizes that he doesn't have a lot of support, but he's got to go in there and try and get her out. So, I said earlier, I'm just a huge fan of Cold War novels. I grew up on that. So in this story, it kind of harkens back to that because he actually does develop an affiliation with some Cold War era resistance members in Latvia, and then some younger present day Russian resistance fighters in Moscow. And, he creates these alliances of convenience, and he scratches their back and they scratch his. And it's his job to try and get into this gulag and get her out. But at the same time, there's a very cunning FSB, Russian Foreign Intelligence colonel, who is laying a trap for the Gray Man to walk right into. So there's, the other side gets a vote in this story too. It's not just all about him going in there and kicking butt.
Okay, but let's talk about the reality of this, because it's, of course, all your books have to say that this is not based on anybody. It's all fictional, but there's a lot of real worldness in your books. There are Russian gulags. There are CIA operatives that are entwined with Russian operatives. Some of them are double agents, some are triple agents. You've got a whole morass of different things that are going on the membrane between the free world and the world of totalitarianism. And so when you do your research for these books, what shocks you? I guess let me start out by saying this. When I read the first presidential daily brief, when I was read into what was going on, at least at that level, I was in a state of shock. And I actually, George W. Bush said to me, well, when you read the brief, did it change you as a person? And I said, yes, it did. It made me see the world totally differently than I saw the world just through the prism of the news or the New York Times. You seem to have that perspective on the world. So tell us a little bit about the world that people don't know that you're trying to share with them in your books.
Yeah, I think as a storyteller, when you do research and you come across something, you're just like really passionate about telling people about it. I will come across some research. My books come out in February. Here we are in January, and I will come up with something. I'll read something tomorrow in some research material that won't be in a book for a year. And I'm just so, passionate about getting that out because I'm interested in it. Everything all the research I've done on Russia, this book is very accurate in a whole lot of ways. But I kind of realized late in writing this book that out of all the books I've written, and I've written Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan novels, and then my own stuff and parts of other series, I always try and predict geopolitically where we're going to be when the book comes out. But this is the one book that's kind of different because I told myself it was okay for me to be more hopeful than I really expected to find the world in 2025 when the book was released. So there's a more robust Russian resistance in my book than actually exists or that I actually know about. But I did do all the research on what's happening with the Russian resistance. I did a lot of research on Ukraine and the technology they have and Russian missile defenses, things like that. I tried to get the information. I tried to understand the information before I kind of departed from it and made things a little bit more hopeful, I guess you could say. But I will say that I am actually surprised that now when the book comes out, I make a big deal in the book that Ukraine is able to strike 1,000 kilometers into Russia and try to explain how that was feasible. And now it's happening almost every other day that it's actually happening. So I was a little worried about people not buying that part of the story, but I don't think that's going to be a problem now.
So love and morality and danger and courage are all mixed into this book. Okay. And so our great protagonist, Court Gentry, is got all these things inside his personality. He's got a pretty decent moral compass, doesn't he?
He has a very strong moral compass, whether or not it's the right thing or not. It's skewed. He sort of grew up as an assassin, but at the same time, he does what he believes is right. So I think that's an important part of his character and his vulnerability.
Yeah, you fall in love with this guy. You want this guy to succeed, but you also see there's a chink in his armor.
Exactly.
So tell me that chink in the armor.
Yeah, his vulnerability is in this book, to a large degree, it's Zoya. He's not had a lot of relationships in his life, and he has a difficult relationship with Zoya, but he is in love with her. She was kidnapped in a previous book. All my novels are standalone. You don't have to read any of the other books. I set it up very early in this book, who's who and what their relationships are. But in a previous book, you see how their relationship is developed. And he's willing to sacrifice anything. And the book opens with him saying, he's making a bunch of poor decisions in his attempt to rescue this woman, or at least to verify that she's alive. And, and I think his chink in his armor is always, he's kind of a slave to doing what he thinks is right. And sometimes that has him walking straight into fire.
Well, I just want to point out to viewers and listeners, this is your 14th book. But they are standalone books. I had not read I have to confess, I did not read a Gray Man book prior to this.
Great. Yeah.
And so I jumped right in, and I just want people to know you can start right here and go forward. I'm going to go back now that I've read the book, but the process, the research, the interviews, the field research. Have you traveled to Russia recently?
Yes, I've traveled to Russia, but previous to the war.
Previous to the war.
The State Department, it's basically, they call it's a do not travel advisory. I've been to many countries where there's a lot of, risks or, code orange or something like that. But Russia would be a terrible place to go now. But I did get to go before the initial invasion. I was actually writing a Tom Clancy novel, the last book with Tom before he passed away, called Command Authority. So I spent a couple weeks in Moscow and some time up in St. Petersburg. And I still have thousands of photos and videos and notes and all my recollections. So that went straight into this book.
Well, no, you could feel it. So be my CIA briefing agent for a second. Okay, you know a lot about the world. You know a lot about America's adversaries, Western liberal democracies, the adversaries of freedom. Brief me. Tell me where we are in the world right now. What should we be worried about?
Well, I mean, specifically to Russia, I think Mitt Romney was right back in 2012 when he said that was our major geopolitical foe. And I think Obama kind of during the debate made fun of that. But look where we are a dozen years later. I think what's important is that Russia is waging hybrid warfare against the West, and the West will sort of begrudgingly call it destabilizing actions or malicious actions and not warfare, but everything from Havana syndrome to the destroying the pipelines and telecommunication cables undersea to the attempted assassination of some political figures and some industry figures in Europe. Gosh, they almost killed the head of Rheinmetall, a German defense company, because they were going to put a Panzer factory in Ukraine, and a plot was, uncovered. There's so much of this, and I spend a lot of time looking at sabotage operations. I do discuss it in the book. Over 400 Russian spies have been expelled from the West just in the last 2 years since the invasion, almost 3 years now. And now the Russians are doing something. It's kind of jokingly referred to as like gig economy spying or gig economy sabotage, where they're hiring people in the West via Telegram and paying them money to set fires and things like that.
Yeah, they're hiring influencers to disrupt our markets.
And hugely influential people are getting paid lots of money to kind of disseminate their propaganda.
Is our leadership, and when I say our leadership, I say collectively Western leadership, American, European leadership, are we up for the task of handling? I mean, it's monumental to me. The Russians only have the GDP comparable to Italy or the state of Texas. Texas is a large state, economically prosperous, but you think of the landmass of Russia, it's a poor country punching over its weight.
Yeah.
Are we up for the fight?
Yeah, Putin has always bet heavy with a bad hand. I've heard it explained, and I think he's been very successful with that. And whether or not we're up against the fight, you kind of have to ask me on the day. Europe spent a couple of years kind of realizing how wrong it was for them to be so dependent on Russian energy, and they've done so much to dial back from that. But just this week, Germany is talking about reopening trade with Russia, and importing natural gas again and things like that, as if they hadn't learned a thing from where they found themselves a couple of years ago. I think greed sort of takes over. And so you see things like that and you go, are we just going to keep making the same mistakes till the end of the world? I don't know. I mean, I think we haven't done enough to support Ukraine. That's my personal opinion. Ukraine is the sixth largest army in the world. And I think Russia's the fourth largest army in the world. If Russia takes over Ukraine and gets themselves control over the sixth largest army in the world, I think it's going to end up costing a heck of a lot more than the 5% of our defense spending that we've given to Russia in the past few years. But a lot of people just, in my opinion, are short-sighted and they don't see that. So I'm cautiously hopeful, but not particularly optimistic about where things are going to be a year from now.
But let me just throw this at you and get you to react to it, Mark. The Russians have been very successful. They've infiltrated the Republican Party. The Russian talking points have showed up in Republican campaign and political platforms. And so I don't know. Are they useful idiots? Are they paid conspirators? What are they exactly?
Well, they caught a lot of paid conspirators in the governments in several European nations. And you see the election influence that, I mean, if you only see it if you pay attention, but there's a lot of election influence in Georgia and Romania and these other big elections that have happened in Europe that Russia directly was involved in.
Almost Moldova too, right?
Yeah, and Moldova as well. The attempt was there. I look back when in 2014, when Russia took over Crimea, they immediately held a referendum in the country. Once they had their little green men on the streets and their guns at the election facilities, they held a referendum, and the Crimeans said, "Yeah, we'd like to be Russian." And I remember at the time thinking, well, no one's going to buy this because obviously this is under duress. A year before they had voted, 58% said they did not want to be Russia. But now I look how naive I was to think that the average person was going to know that. And I've heard so many people in the media say, well, the Crimeans actually voted to become Russia. And I just think that's the most ridiculous thing in the world. But I don't think people pay attention to it quite well enough, and they just take that line.
Exactly. They see the superficial propaganda. It'd be like if the Russians invaded the state of North Carolina and they put their operatives there and then they had a vote. What do you think would happen? Of course, they would vote 100% to be part of Russia. I mean, it's just the way it works. I mean, I have, unfortunately, I get too much knowledge about all this stuff, which frustrates me a lot. And I was blown away by your book because I see that you have that knowledge.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's 5 words that we came up with from your book. My producer Holly and I dig through the book. I'm gonna say the word, and then I want you to react to it. You can give me a sentence or two. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
So if I say the word thriller, what comes to mind for you?
I thought you were going to ask me Russian words. I'm very glad. A thriller is the genre, and a thriller is any type of a story that, as you said at the beginning, keeps you turning the pages. And it's not necessarily crime, my books. I mean, there's more geopolitical, but at the end of the day, my books are human condition stories. So it's the thrills are you getting behind these characters and really sort of chasing their plights across the length of the book.
If I say the word Zoya, you say what?
Well, Zoya is the love of Court's life. I've turned her into a character. She's probably been in 4 or 5 books, and gosh, she might have her own book someday. She's a big part of this story. She's a very flawed character, just like Court, but she's also a very, very strong woman who has a lot of agency in this story. She's the one that he's going in to rescue, but she handles a lot of stuff on her own.
He's ready to give up his life for her.
Absolutely.
So and you create that emotional tension between the two characters quite brilliantly.
Thank you.
I say the word Midnight Black, or the 2 words Midnight Black. You say what?
That became the title because there's just a simple line in the story when Court slips into the water in the Baltic Sea or the Gulf of Finland outside of St. Petersburg. And it's at that moment where he enters Russia, which is halfway through the book. It takes him a while to figure out what's going on and get there and get the resources. But there's this moment where he sinks into the midnight black water in the middle of the night to make his way into Russia. And to me, that was this sort of stark delineation in the story to where it's like, okay, he's in bandit country now and will be for the rest of the story. So it was kind of a powerful moment in the book to me, and turned into a title.
I mean, I love the title. I say the 3 words, The Gray Man. What does that mean?
The gray man is a term that I didn't coin. I've heard it a long time ago. When I was trying to become a published author, I was going to a lot of firearms schools, and there were a lot of military guys there, a lot of law enforcement, SWAT guys, and that you would hear them talk about the gray man as not showing off that that's what you are, moving without tactical gear, clothes on, just sort of making your way through the ether as a normal person, even though you're not. You're one of the you're one of the sheepdogs and not one of the sheep.
Last word, and I'm going to give you the last word, of course, is court gentry.
Yeah, so Court's my guy. People say, "Are you like Court?" And I'm like, in his decision, not in his ability to jump over a fence and not break an ankle. That would not be me. But in the sense of, I think we sort of have the same moral code, and he is a flawed person who has a lot of abilities, but he also has a lot of vulnerabilities. And, he's doing his best. And, he's a fun character to write. And I hope I get to keep doing these books.
What's up next? Another book coming?
Yeah, the 15th book in the Gray Man series. I'm working on that now. I'm going to head over to Europe and do some research and back up to DC and do some research there. And so, the books keep coming. Thank goodness.
All right, well, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. I hope you'll come back for your next book. Title of this book is Midnight Black. It's a phenomenal read. And I'll just tell you something. I'm on the road a lot, and I do a lot of reading. And I was itching to get out of meetings, Mark Greaney, and reopen this book and find out what the hell is going to happen. So I applaud your writing style and your subject material. Thank you so much for coming on Open Book.
Thanks a lot, Anthony.
I make venture investments all the time. My track record's pretty good. Over the last 25 years, I've done well. Every time I make them, I realize since 1954, when they started tracking this data, is that 8 out of 10 will fail for various reasons. That reasons could be fraud, it could be bad executional skills, it could be bad markets, it could be pandemics, whatever it is, 8 out of 10 are going to fail. FTX is just another 80% failure. It's just another deal that went to zero. It doesn't change my life. It doesn't change what I'm going to do tomorrow morning. I've already forgotten about it. How can I not? I've got a lot of other stuff to worry about, i.e. the deals that are working, and I get to work with my team when we do the next venture deal. We're never going to get it right. All these years on television and all the crap you've gone through because of it. If you could start all over again, would you like to be more private? Do you wish you'd never done this?
Trump, despite the fact him and I are sparring today, he said 2 things to me that I'll share, which I think are relevant. Number one, he said, hey, listen, there's 300 million people in the country. 150 million people hate my guts. But what about the other 150 million people that love me? Just imagine the things you can do. You got 150 million people that love you. Let's go with that side. Second thing he said to me, Reince Priebus was like dropping like Oppo research on me in the first couple of weeks of the transition. And Trump called me and said, wow, that was a really nasty article about you. He said, well, let me tell you something. He said, in about 2 weeks, they'll be writing a nasty article about somebody else, and no one will even remember the nasty article that was written about you. And I thought about that. He's by and large right, Kev. Shark Tank's Mr. Wonderful. But more importantly, at least for this podcast, he's the author of 3 best-selling books, Cold Hard Truth, Men, Women, and Money, and Family, Kids, and Money. 2 of those books sound like horror stories to me, Kev. I read them, however. It was like getting a PhD in psychology. But let's start with the Cold Hard Truth. So what's going on to give people today? Give us some cold, hard truth. This is what your signature is. We've been friends for a while. Most recently, we've both been blasted in the media over our cryptocurrency investment. What's the cold, hard truth right now, Kev?
Well, in the context of the cold, hard truth with family, men, women, and money, let's go back there because it's timeless. The messaging there is timeless. And what I tried to, talk about is that family member that nobody wants to acknowledge. It's called money. When you form a relationship with, a significant other and you decide that you're going to take a shot at spending your life together and growing a family, regardless of, what your gender is or what your preference is, I don't care about any of that. At the end of the day, what matters is you are forming a business relationship because you have to somehow fund your family. And that is an obligation you have for the rest of your life. Love them, leave them, it doesn't matter. You have children, it gets even more important. And what I tried to do in writing that book, which I thought was going to be a very easy task, it took me over 2 years, the first book, because I really wanted to get it right, is to acknowledge at an early age that you've got to teach your children about money, and you yourself have to admit your own weaknesses associated with it. And what people do, and what I find so fascinating, the number one piece of research I learned on that first book is when I went to the divorce lawyer community and started asking these lawyers, what is the reason people seem to break up their unions between the 5th and 7th year in America, which is basically where 50% of marriages end in that time period? He said it's not infidelity. It's financial stress. People outspend each other. They don't understand each other's obligations. They get into really bad places with money, and that breaks up a marriage. So if you don't think money has a place in the bedroom, you're 100% wrong. It is the bedroom.
Listen, I agree with you. My parents, I like to tell people, are Catholic, so they put 300 years of fighting into a 65-year marriage. And of those 300 years of fighting, 299 and a half were related to money, Kevin. So I totally I totally get that. But you're the cold, hard truth guy, and you have to be cold and hard and truthful with yourself as well as an entrepreneur. And what I find about entrepreneurs that have a high profile, that press has a tendency to magnify the mistakes more than the successes. So how do you deal with the cold, hard truths related to your own success and failures? And how do you deal with the press related to it?
Yeah, listen, I totally agree with you, and we both live in that world. What I've learned, and this is really a recent phenomenon, I would say over the last 3 years, this has come to pass. There's a great benefit to having celebrity and having social media, and it's a two-edged knife in some sense, because if I want to support a business or an agenda or something it's important to me, my watch collecting, my guitars, whatever, I love to be able to communicate with the rest of that community on social media. And I'm very fortunate to have millions of followers. And I really enjoy that ability, just to get up on a Saturday morning, play a riff on my guitar and ask 7 million people what they think of it. I mean, it's a dream come true for me. I'm not asking them for any money. I just want, if they like the riff, do they should go in the song or not? And that's really powerful. And when it comes to business for the same sort of thing, here's a product I invested in. I bought it. I think it really works. It does one thing really, really well, like my Bratello pizza oven, it makes pizzas. Well, if I can tell 7 million people about it, the customer acquisition cost drops dramatically in some cases, and this is part of the whole Shark Tank phenomenon, to zero. So I can take a company that no one's ever heard of and get it in front of 100 million people. That's the benefit of social media. Now, the downside is, and this is the cost of democracy, the way I like to put it, the reason we live in such a remarkable country with such an incredible fantastic platform for entrepreneurs is that we allow free speech. But the price of free speech is that the lunatic fringe, that 2.5% to 3%, they get to speak too. And they are very, very powerful when they have social media on their side. And so if you actually look at all the haters and the naysayers and all the negative stuff that happens on social media, it's about 3%. And the way I look at it is, they also deserve a voice. You may not agree with it. It may be the lunatic fringe, but it's free speech, and that's the price, and it's never going away. And I don't want to give anybody the power to silence it. I don't want somebody telling me what I can listen to and when I should listen to it. I would rather just let them be free. So what I do is I turn off the noise. My daughter says to me sometimes, Dad, how can you read these things and these people and not have it affect you? And I say to Savannah, I don't give a shit. It's that simple.
Yeah, well, you're better. You're a better man than me, Kevin, which is why I always admire you. I used to give a shit. And then the adage that what other people think of you is none of your business, I had to ingrain that into my habits. But I did give a shit in the beginning. Now I could care less, which brings me to a subject that both of us have been involved in. It's sort of an annoyance to me now. But we both were on the FTX situation as investors. We were both proponents of Sam. What do you think we both got wrong in that? Or where do you think we are in that? I know Sam, I know you have a relationship with Sam, and I know he pled not guilty. Where do you think things stand with the FTX situation?
Well, I don't know if he's guilty or not. I think he's going to have to stand up for his own name. I think he's in a very tough place. I think his family's in a very tough place, and that process will go on. But I think the bigger question is the one you're raising. What did we get wrong? And I think, and when I say we are in a group of some pretty lofty investors all around the world that got involved in this situation. And obviously, we got it wrong. And so what I tell people, that because I've been asked countless times about FTX, and I point something out that I've been living with for 25 years. I make venture investments all the time. And my track record's pretty good over the last 25 years. I've done well. But every time I make them, I realize since 1954, when they started tracking this data, is that 8 out of 10 will fail for various reasons. That reasons could be fraud. It could be, bad executional skills. It could be bad markets. It could be pandemics. Whatever it is, 8 out of 10 are going to fail. FTX is just another 80% failure. It's just another deal that went to zero. I don't like the reasons it went to zero, but it's just another venture investment that went to zero. It doesn't change my life. It doesn't change what I'm going to do tomorrow morning. I've already forgotten about it. How can I not? I've got a lot of other stuff to worry about. i.e. the deals that are working, and I get to work with my team and we do the next venture deal. We're never going to get it right. Now, we thought in the case of FTX, we had the due diligence because so much had been done by giant institutions. Turns out nobody could see this coming. And frankly, when it comes to fraud, you never see it coming. Fraud is fraud. That's why they call it fraud. If that's what it is and it's been alleged, nobody could see that coming. And so at the end of the day, this is going to get worked out. And there are, 400 lawsuits and all the rest of that stuff. To me, at this point, FTX is just noise. How can you not treat it any other way? You can't let it rule your life. You got to move on, and that's what everybody's done. However, it has set back the crypto industry dramatically, and you're well aware of that because you're a participant just like I am. And I think there's other shoes to drop. And I think it's very important over the next 2 years to clean all the rogue operators, all the bad guys out, all the non-compliant, all the opaque, all the stuff that made this happen has to go away, because the potential of what crypto can be is a great thing. And I want to invest in it, but I just want to get the spatula from the sky and scrape all the crap out of this industry, let the chips fall where they may, and start afresh, regulated, compliant, with the great financial potential it has.
So let's talk about that, Kev. We have a combined 69 years in business together. Okay, now it's probably 70, but I like the number 69 better than 70. So we're gonna go with 69. Okay. We were involved in the NASDAQ bubble. You and I were old enough to remember that when the NASDAQ crashed in 2000. We've seen the ups and downs of a lot of upstart companies, technologies, failures, etc. What do you think of crypto? Do we have it right? Do you and I have it right, or do the naysayers have it right? I was listening to Peter Zeihan the other day. He was on the Joe Rogan show. He says, Bitcoin only has $17,000 more to go until it gets to its fair value. We have it right, or do they have it right?
No, we have it right. And what we have wrong is the fact that we have let rogue operators take over this and scam everybody out of their money with all kinds of various schemes in multiple ways. And I think that has to end, because the challenge was it wasn't regulated here, it wasn't regulated abroad. And I think countries like Canada are getting it right now, heavily regulated, Switzerland, heavily regulated, UAE, putting the brakes on there at the ADGM, heavily regulated. And so, going forward, think about payment systems. I've talked about this quite a bit. I'm a big believer in stable coins that are regulated. I think that will be a boon to the securities industry. I'm a big believer in blockchain. I'm a believer in the storage of value of Bitcoin. I own it. I bought some more recently. And so I think the big change is going to be is there's going to be what I consider, and this is my pathway forward. And I've been asked by regulators and by congressmen and by senators of late. As you know, I went and testified on the Hill. I've had lots of feedback from that. I'll tell you, here's one thing I know for certain, okay, that everybody should think about. These senators and congressmen on both sides of the aisle, having gone through the dance of getting the new Congress in place and all the craziness that happened last week, that's past us now. Now they can get back to business and try and do things on a bipartisan basis. And one of them is these men and women are sick and tired of having hearings about the next crypto piece of garbage company that goes to zero. They're tired of it. They're weary of it. And they're sick of having their constituents lose all their money. They're really unhappy. And when that happens, they get motivated to do stuff. And so my anticipation is that they are going to do stuff, and they're going to be very forceful in bringing regulation to this. And so I think the idea of unregulated broker-dealer exchanges, I don't care where they are in the world, they're going to get stamped out like the cockroaches they are. That's what's going to happen, because there's going to be a passport process put in place. And the way this is going to work is if you want to get licensed in some jurisdiction like the United States or in Switzerland or in the UAE or in Canada, all those regulators talk to each other. And you're going to have to be compliant in every single one of them, because crypto doesn't trade by jurisdiction. It trades globally. But if you want to have the banking system in that geography where you're applying for a license to be able to upload and download the fiat currency, in other words, how do you get money into your account in UAE or up in Canada or here in the US, you're going to have to tap into the banking system. That's already regulated. And the regulator isn't going to give you that ability unless you're a regulated broker dealer crypto exchange. And that's how they're going to stamp it out. If you fall out of good standing in a jurisdiction like Canada, they're going to shut you down in the US. They're going to shut you down in UAE. They're going to shut you down in Ireland and Switzerland, because all those regulators are going to form a passport system. That's what I think is coming next. That's how they're going to do it. And so if you're an unregulated exchange now, any unregulated exchange, you better chop and figure out how to get licensed.
All right, I want to shift gears. I totally agree with you on that. This is related and laced into your books. You come from humble beginnings. I hear you quote your mom often. Let's go back to mom for a second. What was the one thing that has the most lasting impact on you from your mom?
Well, it's very simple. When I was a teenager, just became a teenager, she said to me, Kevin, if you always tell the truth, you'll never have to remember what you said. And I said, why would you say that to me, Mom? She said, because I know you're lying to me right now. And I was. And she said, because I know you're lying. And now you've broken our trust. And that's very, very expensive. Now, why don't you just tell me the truth and deal with it? And then I'll know you as not being a liar. And if you make that your creed and how you operate for the rest of your life, you won't get into the trouble you are with me right now. And she was 100% right. I learned my lesson in one big moment. And I've done that ever since. Now, it's not easy. I get in a lot of trouble and all the rest of that stuff because people don't like the truth very often. They would rather you lied to them so it doesn't hurt their feelings. I've learned you can't help that because the truth is going to come out eventually. And so that's how I've lived my life. I try and just tell the truth, and that's it. Now, I talk about that in the book. People have a really hard time with it. I mean, telling the truth means you got to tell the truth to your family and your business partners and your significant other in your relationship. And I use that example when I teach my business classes and engineers at MIT and places like Harvard, Temple, all these colleges. I say to them, look, in business, it's like being married. When you fall in love, you have this amazing period of time you're with somebody and you're building this incredible trust. And the idea of lying to them doesn't even occur to you. And then the relationship goes on. Maybe you get married and you get weak one night and you mess around. And then you have that decision to make. Do I go home and tell the truth and take the heat, or do I lie where I was? Here's the problem with lying. The truth is going to come out one day. It's going to slip out. And when that occurs, you will lose 50% of that relationship's equity forever. Forever. You will never get it back. There's no way, because you can never be trusted because you're a liar. Versus going back and saying, I did something horrible last night. I was in a bar in a hotel and I was weak and I did this and I slept with somebody. I know this sounds incredibly difficult to do, but at least your significant other will respect the truth. And your marriage will probably survive and you won't lose the equity that you could have lost. And that's the lesson I give in class. But I also say it's the same thing in business. It's exactly the same thing in business. The minute you lose your reputation, the minute you lie, you've given up something it took you a whole career to build, your reputation, because now you don't tell the truth and nobody can trust you ever again. That's my whole point.
I mean, I think it is, it's brilliant. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on. I often tell young people, if you keep your integrity, you'll always have opportunity. So whether you and I are getting slammed on a deal or lit up in the press, the people that we've done business with, if they feel that we have high integrity, they'll always come back and want to do business with us. It's just about playing it straight. But let's talk about lies for a second. What's the biggest or the best lie that you've heard about yourself online? I can tell you mine.
Probably a lot has to do with, that I'm not being honest about my terms on deals, that I'm just being greedy.
Right.
I'm not greedy. I know what I'm worth. And when I ask for something, it's because I think it's well-founded and I'm happy to negotiate. But the amount of, heat I take for asking for things like royalty or cashback structures, the way I like to structure my venture deals, a lot of people say a lot of bad things. But what I say about that, and which has really helped me in the last 14 years, and I certainly put it in the context of Shark Tank as being known as the royalty guy, is why don't you talk to my CEOs before you close this deal? Why trust any of my staff? Why not trust and verify? Why don't you call up the CEO of a company that's been paying me royalties for 7 years and ask them if it's worth it or not?
Right.
I'm not asking you to do something you don't want to do, or a structure like venture debt or whatever it is. Why don't you go ask? And why don't they talk to you about me? And do your own due diligence. Nobody can believe I do that. I do it all the time. I don't have to sell myself anymore. I let my CEOs do it for me. And that's how I bring these deals to a close. Look, I do business the way I do business. If you don't like it, don't do the deal. But
Right.
I get what I want more than half the time because I bring great value.
Well, yeah, of course, you're obviously adding value. People, and plus you're fun to be with. People want to hang out with you. They want to have that association. The biggest lie about me was on QAnon. They said when I got fired, it was some kind of like 3D chess conspiracy. Kevin, I swear to God, it was just me being an asshole at the White House that got myself fired. Okay, there was nothing more dramatic than that. But anyway, I just thought that was fun.
Well, let's stay on that for a second, because
Yeah.
The reason I admire you, because I didn't know you then, was I watched the absolute blowtorch you went through in the 2 weeks after that experience. I had never seen anything like it. You got fried like a chicken. It was unbelievable. And then, I mean, look, I want to call it out because you don't take enough credit for it. I mean, I had never seen, it was like an ant under a microscope on a planet where the sun shines 24 hours a day. At least you get a break on Earth, but not where you were getting fried. And it was just unreal. And then to top it off, and this is where I said he's lost his mind, but I admired you. When you got into that tiff with Trump about, things he said about your family.
Yeah, he went after my wife. I mean,
yeah, went after your wife. I wanted you to say it, not me. But I remember that, and I said, wow, this guy this dude's an Italian crazy guy. And I really admired that, and I knew that, I could relate to it. But that was really two humps on the camel kind of pressure cooker for you.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you saying it. Listen, I just
but
being true to myself.
Look how you came out of it. Your brand survived because you told the truth. And everybody that talked about you, because you were like, I had 50 calls a day about you saying, can you believe this guy? And I said, yeah, do you not believe what he's saying? I mean, he's really telling it the way it is. And I mean, you got to admire the crap he's going through. But I think you came out of it better than a lot of other people that were trying to somehow distance themselves in different ways from that period of time. And I think you've survived very well.
Well, I like this knife, especially coming from you, who's been in the blast furnace alongside of me on certain occasions. That's very sweet of you to say. But like you, I just said what I felt. I think I was exonerated certainly about Steve Bannon. I mean, the guy definitely went off the reservation. We don't have to talk about him here because I want to stay on your books and your achievements. What is the thing that you're most proud of? And your kids are amazing. I've had the opportunity to meet them. But I'm talking about professionally. Like you say, okay, wow, I was so happy that I was able to do that. For me, I'll just tell you, I thought I was going out of business in 2008. I thought Skybridge was going out of business. Certainly felt that way. And we made a couple of moves, and some of it was lucky, and some of it was smart, and it was good timing, but we were able to save the business, and the business went on to thrive. So it was an adapt and pivot in 2008 for me. What was it for you? What do you look back and say, okay, wow, that was a good situation?
I go back to the decades that I've been a venture capitalist in supporting entrepreneurial drive, and identifying people that have that they're willing to take those risks and take that journey, and I invest in them. It doesn't always work out, but what I really enjoy is giving, because I've been there before, and I think the one way to give back is to go back to those people and say, look, I've done what you've done, and I know where the potholes are, and I would love to invest in you and give you some mentoring and see if we can't be successful. I love engaging with them, and I've got this great team I work with, and I hire very, very slowly, and I fire very quickly because I like to keep my team very intact. But I just get energy out of it. I mean, it's not work for me. I enjoy everything I do every day. But what I find so intriguing is what I've really learned is people think in business, this is the one lesson I've learned, that you have to like everybody you do business with. That's not true. You have to keep your friends and family different than your business relationships, because some of my most successful deals are deals where I invested in real assholes that nobody likes. I like them because they're good at executional skills. Maybe you don't like their personality, but they have great executional skills. And, nobody likes these people. And so we hate the guy. We had a meeting with him. He's terrible. I said, wait a second, that sounds like my kind of guy. Let's go meet him. Let's go sit down and find out what he's achieved and why I would bet you a third of the companies I'm an investor in, my team hates the CEO for whatever reason. But I love them because they have executional skills and milestones. That's one thing that I've really enjoyed. And the other thing for me is it blown me away over, now it's 15 years and I have 7 years worth of data, that almost 80% of my returns have come from companies run by women. And I'm not into this gender warfare crap. I don't care about that. I'm just talking about the outcomes. So I'm very biased in investing in these really strong matriarchal kind of women that just have, they're just different. They're just different. And they have made me so much money. And so it's the outcome I care about. And so I'm very, very biased. You look at my deal flow now, you find these extraordinary women with very aggressive personalities. And, I love that stuff. And that I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that stat. And so when I hear initiatives from, entrepreneurial groups or venture funds that are saying, want to tap in your deal flow with women, I'm all for it. And, but it's not about this, gender neutrality thing. It's about executional skills. And when people say to me, well, they can't say that, I say, yes, I say that. Yes, I invest to make money. That's why I invest. I'm not trying to save the planet. I'm trying to save the money. People give me money to invest. I want to make sure it gets returned. I'm happy to save the planet, and I'm a kumbaya guy, but I need executional skills, and I get that from women.
All right, it's my last question, but I want you to think about it. Okay, so it's a Kevin O'Leary, Anthony Scaramucci sort of question. Okay, you have probably the most infectious laugh of anybody I've ever met. Like when you're laughing, you are really laughing. We were at an event together when Jimmy Kimmel was lighting up the house, and I saw you with your head back, really laughing. You have this amazing sense of humor. Okay. How and why? How did you develop that? When do you deploy it? And you even have it about yourself. I mean, it is, the rumor is that you came up with the name Mr. Wonderful. Herkovec told me that. And then when he said, nobody calls you Mr. Wonderful. And you said, you just did.
It's probably true. We're trying to find the origins of that, but I like to say that facetiously because Barbara is always on Shark Tank. I've been working with those people now for 14 years, and Barbara's always busting me about my royalty deals and all this crap, and I just love to take it all in. And she's a great cook, by the way, and we're very good friends. When I'm in New York, we often get together. She does a great job cooking. But, it's sort of like, I think if you can't laugh at yourself and you can't find some humor, because life is so full of drama and bad moments, it's sort of like, here's a typical day, and today included, okay? I've got a lot of deals, over 50 of them. And each day is a passion play. It starts with, like today, 3 calls about the year is really starting today. Today is the first all-in day where the lawyers are back and the bankers are back and everything's back.
Right. Yeah.
First 3 calls of the day, it's some tragedy occurring in one of my companies. They think they're going to go bankrupt. It's tied to the crypto space. They're down 80%. And it's just chaos. And, it's all bad news and everybody's miserable. And then 20 minutes after that, I get a call in another company that just scored a massive deal in distribution. I mean, it's going to triple their business. And so it goes from like chaos to euphoria. It's like, it's all in the same hour. And I say to myself, well, okay, well, how about that? Do they cancel each other out, or how do I look at that? Should I be miserable from what I'm about to lose over there, or happy about what I'm going to make over here? Or maybe it's just one big passion play and you got to take it all in and just realize there's a path to being happy somehow. I love this idea of being happy. And happiness, I don't know, people are talking about this, is about relationships with people.
No
and
question.
if you have great relationships, there's no reason you can't be happy. There's lots of reasons to be miserable. I get that, but I don't want to be miserable. I'd rather be happy. And I don't need any more money, so that's not going to be the measure of my happiness. I need more time, and I want to have fun, and I want to do stuff that I like, and I get to do that now. And if I don't know. And so if laughing, I love it. If we can have some fun, that's a great thing. There's no question about that. There's something that both of us consider. Somebody asked me the other day, and I want you to think about this too and give me the answer to this. All these years on television and all the crap you've gone through because of it, if you could start all over again, would you like to be more private? Do you wish you'd never done this? I know my answer, but I want to hear yours first.
No. This has been the greatest silver lining of my life. First of all, if I didn't have a high profile, I wouldn't know you, Kevin. Honestly, I don't think we would have connected because we connected in those circles. I've gotten to do reality television. I was on Special Forces this past week. It had 18 million viewers. I have been all over the world speaking. I've been blessed with unique relationships and friendships. I couldn't do this podcast if I didn't have a high profile. So for all of those reasons, yes, there is a sting to it. I get snark. Sometimes I've gotten death threats. Sometimes I feel that it's been unfair to my children. But by and large, I would take the whole enchilada again. What about you?
Yeah, I am 100% with you. And when I have this discussion with my family that say, particularly during the periods of controversy and,
Sure,
all of these things.
Oh, the FTX thing sucked.
Yeah. I mean, what a shitstorm. I mean, it was just unbelievable. But I say to them, look, if you look at the cycle of media today, and I've been totally transparent on all of these situations and just tell them what I know and, dealing with the authorities and all the rest on it. It's sort of like, you got to take that in. It's part of the cost.
It is.
But I go back to my thing. If you want freedom of speech, if you want to have an open society and you want to explore ideas that even you don't like, the lunatic fringe has a voice too, and they always will. And so just get over it. And, it's all of that stuff is just noise.
I'm with you. And, Trump, despite the fact him and I are sparring today, he said two things to me that I'll share, which I think are relevant. Number one, he said, hey, listen, if there's 300 million people in the country, 150 million people hate my guts. He said, but what about the other 150 million people that love me? Just imagine the things you can do. Okay. And his point was, you got 150 million people that love you. Let's go with that side of it. Okay. The second thing he said to me, I think I got beat up. Reince Priebus was like dropping like Oppo research on me in the first couple of weeks of the transition. He really didn't like me for whatever reason. I think because I was a New Yorker and Trump was a New Yorker. And Trump called me, said, wow, that was a really nasty article about you. He said, well, let me tell you something. He said, in about 2 weeks, they'll be writing a nasty article about somebody else, and no one will even remember the nasty article that was written about you. And I thought about that. He's by and large right, Kev. You got to tell your family that.
I think the thing
goes
that I
by
think
the wayside,
The politicians of today are learning something very quickly in the last year, I would say. It's no longer just about politics. You got to have some policy too. You got to bring policy to the table, because all of this politics is, at the end of the day, boring. Like these infights and these crazy sessions, and people get tired of this crap. They want to see the output. I don't care who you are, what side of the fence you're on. Just bring policy forward, and then let people decide if it's good policy or bad policy. I thought Trump had good policy on small business during his tenure. And a lot of people tried to tie that to the politics. The truth is, small business did very well during his reign. And now as we overregulate it again, it's not going to do so well. That's my take on it. And I don't know who the next policymaker on small business is going to be. For me, I'm very thankful that we're in total gridlock in Washington. I love that.
Yeah.
I say, take an 18-month breather. Let's get nothing done. That's okay. And let's pick it up on the other side.
I agree with you on that. All right. So I've got 5 words. This will take 40 seconds. I'm going to say the word, and then you're going to say a word. We're going to play word ping pong. I'm going to say a word. The first thing comes to your mind, you say back to me. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Gullible.
I want to think about that.
You want me to come back?
No. I think it's a very good question. I don't want to peg it on one person. I want to peg it on a sector. Green activists.
Green activist, gullible. Okay, good. All right, passionate.
Green activists.
Okay, I say Italian when I hear that word passionate. Right, but let's keep going. Okay, you could be Lebanese though too, by the way.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know your Lebanese background. All right, ruthless.
Mr. Wonderful.
That was 2 words, Kevin. I'm kidding. Greedy.
They really should be together, though.
Yeah, they should be. They should be. It should be one. It should be the syllables combined. Mr. Wonderful. Greedy.
Politicians.
Interesting. It's interesting. I say when I hear greedy, I think short-sighted. I want to be long-term greedy. Persuasive.
Storytellers.
Hey, it's very good. All right, so I've got Barbara Corcoran. She's going to come on in a few weeks. I need you to leave me with a question that I can ask her that will fire her up, because we know she can be fired up. Let's just put it that way. So what am I going to say?
Look, you have to ask her this question because, every speaking
I love her,
gig
by the way. But
no, I love her too. We are very good friends, and she will admit that. And we talk all the time. We're always texting about stuff. However, wherever I go, in these speaking gigs I do all around the world, it's a lot in financial services, but people always ask me, what's going on with you and Barbara? And I always say this, and it works every time, and it has for 15 years. The only reason Barbara gets to the Shark Tank set on time each year is I buy her a new broom. So if you ask her, what does Kevin get you each year to make sure you're on time on Shark Tank, she'll go out of her mind.
All right, I got to talk to the FCC on that one. I'll be back to you, see if I can get away with it. I'm kidding. Kevin O'Leary, somebody I consider a dear friend, is somebody I look up to. I will tell you that. I think you are a role model for people. Before we met, one of my kids said to me, do you know Mr. Wonderful? I said, you mean Kevin O'Leary on Shark Tank? He said, yeah, I would love to meet Mr. Wonderful someday. And then the good fortunes of life put us together. And my kids think the world of you, Kevin. You are the author of 3 best-selling books, Cold Hard Truth, Men, Women, and Money, Family, Kids, and Money. And you are the chairman of O'Leary Ventures, and you are Shark Tank's Mr., and that's one word, Mr. Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining Open Book.
I really enjoyed it. I always love these sessions with you. This is absolutely fantastic. I will see you soon, hopefully in Miami and New York. I will be in both places for quite a bit of time. So let's catch up again.
Let's get to dinner when I'm down. I'm going to be down in Miami on the 26th to the 31st. If you're down there,
I'll be here. I'll see you here.
Okay. All right. Love you, man. Thank you for doing this with us. You're phenomenal. This is great.
Take care. Thanks.
All right. God bless, Kev.